mentioned, I'm going to share a use case or an example of our customer who successfully implemented our software to basically start the journey on the path to enterprise AI. I think we all agree that by now AI has basically arrived into every organization. When I think about use cases, especially with regards to the industry sector, we probably all think about big value-generating use cases such as fault prediction, predictive maintenance, demand forecasting, or inventory management. And I think, if we continue to think what other big value-generating use cases there might be, we probably all have 10 or 20 that come really fast to our mind. But actually, the further we think about it and the closer we look into all the different processes within organizations, we will realize that they are not 10 or 20, but actually hundreds of perhaps at first sight less significant use cases. Here I'm thinking, for example, about use cases for cash allocation or even use cases in HR. And again, if we look into all the different departments and all the different processes, we are going to realize that there are hundreds or 500 of these use cases. And if we take another even closer look and if we dig even deeper, we will realize that there are actually thousands of use cases that are possible within an organization. For example, if I'm thinking about these, perhaps less significant use cases, it might be a simple decision. What should be the trainings policy for our employees, or what should be the procurement policy for pens? And actually, what we at Dataiku consider successful adoption of AI is if every single of these processes and decision is augmented with the help of artificial intelligence by basically leveraging the available data. But I think we all know that digital transformation is actually quite difficult. And as a matter of fact, McKinsey's published a study last April that only 3% of these big value-generating use cases are actually implemented with sustained success. So what I would like to do first is actually have a look why digital transformation is so difficult today. Here I'm going to rely on another study published by Ernst & Young also last year, and they identified a couple of barriers, and I'm going to keep it short because I don't have that much time. And so I basically identified the two main challenges. The first is around people. What do they mean by that? Well, it's first the lack of AI talent, because we don't have an unlimited amount of data scientists within a company. And secondly, it's also a lot about working in silos, so the different people don't work together. And ultimately, this leads to absolutely no trust into what the other person is doing. The second main challenge identified is around technology. This is probably quite obvious. This includes, for example, topics around quantity and quality of data. It also includes infrastructure that might be supported or not supported. And this also includes topics around security, etc. If I just take two examples, actually today 70% of the data that we have is pre-prepared for absolutely nothing, which is also due to the fact that 90% of the data that we have today is less than 2 years old. So actually, we can, for example, say that we are going to prepare all the data that we have and store it somewhere. It's actually not going to help us to address the issue of data quantity or quality available, because the data is going to be useless in 2 years from now. And last but not least, obviously, there's a huge obsolescence of data, trends, and formats. Another point I just want to add really quickly is around technology, because when we at Dataiku started in 2013, Hadoop was the one technology to have when you want to work on big data. But as you can see on the slide, it was actually in 2016 when Hadoop became out of the sudden less popular, and Spark was the one technology that you have absolutely to have when you want to leverage the data. And today, it's Kubernetes that is on the rise, but what is it going to be tomorrow? I don't know. So everybody is actually, dreaming of the digital transformation, and everybody wants to turn the caterpillar into a butterfly. How do we do that? Well, I brought you an example of how we have seen it work. Here you can see the logo of GE. Our customer is actually GE Aviation, to be really precise. And they were facing exactly the same challenges I just mentioned before. They had huge silos, data silos, but also people silos, and they had no manner of communication. Because there was no communication between the different teams, ultimately, they didn't have any trust. Also the, let's say, more management people didn't have any trust into the data. Because they didn't communicate, they had to repeat a lot of work. And there was mostly no central vision of, what are we going to do with all this available data in the next years. If we see how they are working today, you can see that a lot has actually changed. So today they have almost 2,000 users of their self-service analytics system. They published more than 130 data sets in 1 year. And I think a really important or interesting fact is also the automated projects. So they have almost 300 projects running in an automated environment today. So how have we seen that it works? Basically, GE was realizing really soon that they have a lack of AI talent, but they will never be able to hire as many data scientists as they need. So they changed their perspective. Instead of seeing it as a lack of AI talent, they saw it as a lack of data talent. And so ultimately, they decided to enable a huge population within their company to work with the data. Secondly, they took the topic of the data. So they, as I said before, an issue is often quantity and quality of data. But actually, again, if we change the perspective and if we think about it, it's not a question of quantity and quality of data, but it's a question of availability. So what they did is, with Dataiku, they allow basically all different kinds of profiles to leverage the available data today by leveraging either open source technologies if you are a data scientist, or using a visual interface if you don't want to code. Secondly, I mentioned the issue of technologies and that they're getting obsolete in a super fast manner. GE also realized that, and instead of relying on one single technology that they might not be able to use again anymore in 2 years, they use Dataiku today to connect all of their different systems via Dataiku's centralized platform. Ultimately, this means that they can use the technologies that they have in place today, but they are also ready for all the technologies that they might use in the future. For example, if they want to merge their data to the cloud, or if they want to leverage, for example, Docker or Kubernetes to be more, to work in a more containerized environment. And last but not least, I mentioned that employee trust is often a very huge challenge. So they decided that they want to have a self-service analytics platform where they can connect different profiles so that they can better understand how the other person works and that they can have more trust into the data. So again, basically in a nutshell, what did they do? They built up a self-service analytics platform where today almost 2,000 users can access the data that has been made available in this platform. The centralized self-service analytics platform is managed by 2 centralized teams. One team is in charge of enablement, because we shouldn't forget about enablement of people that don't know how to work with data necessarily from their education or from their school. So one team is in charge of enablement, and the other team is in charge of making sure that the platform works properly and that new data products and new data sets are available within this self-service analytics platform. Parallel to that, they still offer a platform for more advanced users, for example, data scientists who want to continue to leverage their open source technologies, and this also happens basically in the centralized hub that they built. And I think another really important fact is, you might remember the 600 automated projects that I've shown you. Actually, within the self-service analytics platform of GE, everybody can deploy a model into production. Of course, not any model, but you basically, once you build a prototype and you want to test it, GE built with Dataiku a system of checks and metrics that automatically allows everybody to send this data set into this checks and metrics process, and once it is validated, the data product will be basically published and be in an automated workflow. And basically that's how they are now on their way to enterprise AI, where they, as I mentioned before, have a huge population that can work completely autonomously and independently with the data, no matter what their profile or what their depth of knowledge actually might be. So this was just an example. GE is one of our big customers in the manufacturing space. That being said, Dataiku is a completely agnostic software. So we have customers in all different kinds of industries. And as the challenges are actually always the same, no matter which industry we're working on, there's also a huge array of use cases that is developed today with Dataiku, ranging from pretty basic data ingestion and data aggregation use cases to more advanced use cases around, for example, predictive maintenance, fraud detection, or customer segmentation. So if you want to learn more about other use cases, I'm happy to talk to you, and you can come by our booth if you haven't already. Thank you.